Hi everyone, welcome to a new video segment here at Diecast X. I'm Matt Boyd, Executive Editor, and today we're starting a giant-sized build-it-yourself Back to the Future DeLorean from Eaglemoss Collections. And I do mean giant. This thing is 8 scale. When complete, it's going to be more than 20 inches long. Its major structures are metal, so it's going to be really hefty too. The way the program works is like a subscription. Every couple of weeks, Eaglemoss sends you a new component kit, which looks like this. Each of these kits requires a bit of assembly, and then the sub-assemblies are combined to assemble the overall car. This spreads out both the assembly time and the cost, making both more manageable, and it's just fun to look forward to receiving the next piece. I'll be building it in installments just like you would at home. Depending on the complexity of each kit, we will sometimes cover a couple in one video, and you'll get to follow along and see the model come together along with us. Stick around because the finished model will really be something to see. The butterfly doors will open, so will the engine compartment and the trunk. It will have working lights too, and not just the headlights and taillights that light up, but also the time travel gear, the famed flux capacitor that helped make this machine such an icon. Almost everybody knows this car, the film and the principal characters, Doc Brown, Marty McFly, and his nemesis Biff Tannen. But there's a lot about the movie, trivia, technical info, and just cool background material that we don't know. Eaglemoss has us covered though. It includes these great magazines with each kit installment. A couple pages are devoted to assembly instructions, like this. But the rest is fascinating backstory on the film and the car itself. It really makes a fun presentation. But of course, the model is the reason we're here. So let's pop open this first kit and start building. Kit 1 assembly starts with the rear bumper. Oddly enough, it includes the famous California plate that reads "out of time," so that's cool, kind of a fun little callback to the movie that everybody will remember. Other parts include the upper and lower rear valances, the plate base, which is here. We talked about the license plate with it even comes with the period correct California registration stickers. Various light lenses and frames, and a couple different sizes of screws here in the hardware package. If you'll note, Eaglemoss gives you a fine tip Phillips head screwdriver too, which will no doubt come in handy throughout the rest of the build. I brought in another screwdriver set of my own that ratchets, which will speed up some assembly steps. Not strictly necessary, but kind of handy. So let's get to work here. We'll get some of these screw packets out. They are labeled AP and BP. I assume A Phillips and B Phillips. And we'll get our screwdriver out. My building mat here is a little bit adhesive, which is nice for keeping parts from rolling away, but it also means I have to peel stuff up. So I'm going to leave the stickers and some of these other smaller pieces in the crate so that I don't have to deal with that. So according to our first step in our instructions, 4 screws attach the lower valance to the main tail piece. That's your main tail piece right there, and the lower valance. So we flip these over. I'm going to slide this out of the way. Okay. We line up the little locator tabs there. Press fit that in. Like so. And then we'll grab our BP screw set. So the instructions tell us we need 4 of these. We'll use Eaglemoss's screwdriver for the first one. Pretty straightforward. Just make sure you Tighten those gently, don't get them cross-threaded so that you don't tear up the plastic, because this piece is metal but the bottom valence is plastic, and that's where the threads dig in. So you want to go easy till you're sure you've got those straight. 4 screws. Next segment here, as I just move this out of the way, I'm going to move our tray back over here. Our next step is the taillights, or one of the taillights to be more specific. So we have a taillight frame, and we've got various sets of lenses here. Now the lens pieces just press fit to begin with into the frame, like so. There we go. So we've got the lighting pieces press fit into the frame. Now we take that assembly, bring back to our main tail piece, and flip this over. Now, the instructions do point out that it's very important that you press on the frame section as you're securing this, the edge of the frame, but that way you don't knock those lens pieces out. And that's good advice, although, as you can see from my version, sometimes they fall out on their own without you having to press on them at all. But there we have it seated. So, and it will be secured with a single screw, another one of these BP screws that goes right into the tab on the light frame. This one takes a little bit more to thread it in. We got it. There you go. So that screw is secure, and now our lights are in place. Now, the reason that those lights are a little bit more complicated than just having a single panel is because later on, when we install the functional lighting system, different LEDs will light up different parts of those lenses. So it's important to have them be a multi-piece construction. So there you have it. We're going to set that aside, and we're going to move on to our next part of the assembly. So I flip my instruction pages. Okay, so let's get these registration stickers applied to our license plate. Get the frame out of the way for a second. So we've got two sets of stickers here. We've got they're both period correct, California 1986, and the month August here. So the way that these are supposed to go is the August sticker goes above the O on out of time. So we'll try and peel one of those off gently. And get that seated in the right spot. This can be pretty tricky. I don't know how well you guys can see this. My fat fingers are probably in the way. But there. It's not 100% straight, but it's better than it was. Wouldn't mind seeing Eaglemoss go ahead and silkscreen these on. There's no reason why they couldn't have painted the decals on for you. Save the frustration of having to place these. And because there's two sets, I have the unpleasant suspicion that we may have to do this procedure again in a future kit. So yeah, not my proudest moment in terms of getting those straight, but they're roughly in the right place, and I dare say most of the people who stuck those on their license plates back in the day probably didn't get them 100% straight on the real thing either. So, but there they are. So next thing is to snap the plate into the base, which is really just dropping it in more than snapping it in. And then you flip it over and we'll secure it with a pair of screws on the back side. I'm gonna move that out of our way. As it happens, we are now using our AP size screws. Precisely why they require a different size, I don't know. These are a little bit thinner in diameter, maybe slightly tighter. Fit in the smaller pieces. So we'll turn this over, find our first screw hole. We'll say it's got a pretty good feel to it. It's got a rubber grip handle, and the tip is well suited to these small screws, so it's not a bad thing that they've chosen to supply with the kit. Definitely comes in handy if you don't have a, you know, a jeweler's screwdriver set or something with the real small tips on it. So I'm going to set this off to the side. Now that we've got that in place, I need to fetch this part here, which is the license plate frame and I guess the lighting system from the original DeLorean. That will go right up top, fit together like that, if you can see that. And then we'll put two more of these smaller AP sized screws. I should have left the label out there for you so you can see them. Take my word for it, those are APs. So here we go. You know, something that you may be thinking, all of these screws, won't that break up the realism of the car when you're finished? It would, except if you've noticed, or maybe you haven't, and if you haven't, I'll point it out now. All the screws are on the back sides of all these parts. So, as they go together, the screw holes will become, or the screw heads will become hidden and not interfere with the look of the car. So now we're going to set aside our completed license plate frame panel. We'll go back to our tailpiece here, and install the bumper. Now, nothing fancy with this one. We're just going to snap this right in. There are 8 tabs. You obviously want to make sure that the script is right side up, although I don't believe that the bumper would fit if you had it upside down, so you got that helping you out. And when the tabs are lined up, hopefully, you just press fit, snap it in, and there we go. Nice satisfying click, feels pretty secure, no screws needed for this stage, and there you have tailpiece with its one tail light so far. But I'll, spoiler alert, kit number 2 takes care of that missing tail light. We'll get to that in a second, but that completes the assembly of kit number 1. Now, I do have a couple of spare screws here, more than a couple actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw them back in their little tiny Ziploc bags with their label card on the anticipation that I may need them for a future step. But after that, we have completed kit number 1. But that went pretty smoothly, so why don't we jump right in and do kit number 2 while we're at it, and then we'll see if we can finish off this tailpiece. So for kit number 2, we're going to have to get our second piece of instruction manual here. So there's our parts and our first page of instructions. We'll drop that right on top of there. Here's what the kit looks like as it comes, minus the cover material that I've already peeled off. Speed things up a little bit. I think I'm going to grab my other screwdriver. Guessing that that's the right tip, but we shall see if it turns out. No, I'm going to go with this one. We'll see how that fits. Maybe it won't, in which case we'll go back to the Eaglemoss supplied one. So for kit number 2, we're doing 2 things, and they're not really connected to one another. The front fender panel, which obviously you can see, and the remaining tail light. The instructions have us doing the fender panel first, but since we just were working on the tail, I think I'm going to switch that around and do the tail light section first so that we can finish up that panel that we were just working on. So, being a mirror image of the other one, the procedure is exactly the same. We fish out our pieces here, press fit them into the frame. Now, so I'm going to move this out of the way for a second while we go back to our tail piece from kit number 1, and we'll go back and repeat the process. Put that tab in very gently, and then try and get this to drop in. So I'm going to hold that in, and then we're going to retrieve our BP size screws from before. Probably was a little bit premature in sealing those back up, but there we go. Take one of those little guys, find the screw hole. There we go. See if my other little screwdriver fits. It's just a tad small. So we're going back to the original. There we go. Give that a twist, make sure. So, woohoo. Both taillight pieces. And I got thumbprints on them, but we'll clean that off before we're done here. So now, with both taillight assemblies in there, you can see these tabs, they both needed to be seated before we could put our license plate panel into place, because they cover those tabs up. Snaps in, nice fit. Again, we're going to put screws in here to secure it. This time we're going back to our AP sized screws, so I'm going to pick up after myself here and get the other size screw. So these thread into these tiny holes right here. And now our license plate panel is in place. So as I said, I kind of jumped ahead and did that piece first. I'm going to move that off camera there, because it seemed to make sense with what we were working on previously, since we did kits 1 and 2 at the same time. But I will note that the instructions actually have you doing this component first. So we'll go back and do that now. It being the left front fender. Really all we're doing here is we're putting 2 pieces of trim onto this fender. Now, you have a longer piece of trim which goes behind here, goes behind the front wheel well, wheel opening, right? Sits like that. And is held in place by more AP screws. Since we've got a few of those out already from the previous bag, I will just use those, although they give you more in this kit. So if the first 2 kits are any indication, we're gonna have a lot of extra hardware by the time we're through. And while having parts left over when you're done assembling a car is usually a sign that you haven't done something right, in this case, I think it's just Eaglemoss giving us extra, anticipating that we're going to lose a few along the way, which is probably the case because these suckers are small. Although, adhesive mat, good way to lose fewer parts. So, there's 2 screws that locate that first piece of trim. The smaller piece of trim goes in front of the front wheel opening. A couple little tabs there. Doesn't sit exactly flush just yet, but let's see if we can get that to go in there a little bit better. Strange. Again, maybe we're dealing with a little bit of flashing issue. You want to be careful when you do stuff like this so you don't ruin your screwdriver, but this metal seems to be manageable, so make sure there's no extra flashing on the plastic. Yeah, it just doesn't want to sit very flush, does it? Oh wait, there we go. Yeah, that extra scraping of the flashing out of the hole was just enough to make it seat down in there. Sits nice and firm, which is good. We'll drop another one of these screws in there. And there you go. That small piece only needs just the one screw, so there it is. Two pieces of black trim on one fender. Okay, so we got this, we got this so far. A couple of satisfying pieces in terms of components that we can tell where they go and what they'll do. We can already see the quality in terms of the thick metal construction, which is nice. You know, this piece weighs, you know, what a 43rd scale car weighs, just this fender all by itself, and the tail is at least that heavy. So yeah, this car is going to have some heft to it. It's going to be a substantial piece. Certainly it's going to be a sizable piece. As I mentioned in my intro, 20 inches long, more than 20 inches long. It'll weigh several pounds, there's no question. So, you know, it'll feel like something when you're done. It'll feel like you accomplished something. So there you have it, the first installment of our Diecast X video series and the first two kits in Eaglemoss's Back to the Future DeLorean. Thanks for watching, and be sure to join us next time as we tackle the next stage of assembly on our 1/8 scale time machine build-up.